Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about one of the new unusual locations that Creative Assembly has added in patch 6.3. If there is one thing I really like about 6.3 is all of these interesting unusual locations that they have added throughout the game, though I think we should get a higher chance for them to spawn in the first place. But regardless, this one is a bit interesting. Some of these unusual locations are very straightforward, but Tzeentch being Tzeentch, not so much. So you have a chance of this cult spawning. I'm not quite sure what causes it to spawn. It might just be Chaos Wasteland. It might be in proximity to Tzeentch and Corruption, because in this case I am playing as Axiatl. But it is a Cult of Tzeentch. A Cult of Tzeentch under Lizardman territory. Bit awkward considering Lizardman lore, especially with regards to demons. But here's what it does. It has a chance to spread, and once it spreads to 9 locations in total, it will be removed. It gives you 9% campaign movement range, construction cost, income from all buildings, wins the magic power reserve capacity, and 9% unit experience. But of course, if you think Tzeentch is just going to give you benefits, well, you haven't been paying attention to what Tzeentch does in the lore. It also increases your Tzeentch corruption, and it has a chance to spread. Incidentally, when this cult spawns, they say they're looking to spread around the world, so they won't bother your territory, but it will give you benefits. That's not really how it's going to happen. Anyway, by default, if your Tzeentch corruption in a province is below 50, there's a chance of 3% for this cult to spread to another region, and the province is gonna gain 15 Tzeentch corruption. You can obviously keep this under control through commandments, for buildings, heroes, if you want to. Or you can let it grow in order for the cult to grow. Though there's not necessarily that many benefits to that. I think the biggest benefit you can get from this cult is if you keep it under control, but keep in mind, even if you are looking to keep it under control, there's still that 3% chance that it will spread. If Tzeentch and corruption reaches over 50% and 50 corruption in a province, the chance for it to spread is 33%. So over here in this campaign, this cult spawned very early on in my Axiatl campaign right here. This is turn 30, it's already 8 out of 9. And with Tzeentch corruption over 50, the Tzeentch corruption increase is 7. So you can certainly keep it under control. You also get Arcane Surge for all region owner armies. Arcane Surge is a power reserve benefit. So power recharge, reserves per second ability. And you get these benefits faction-wide. So it's a really solid economic benefit. But again, this being Tzeentch, there are of course some downsides with that. Some fairly major ones at that. Now, removing the cult costs 16,000 when it spawns. That's already pretty expensive, but if you leave it there, it does have a pretty good chance of spreading to your own territory, and that will be a Purple Hand hideout. So this is related to the Purple Hand. So what this does is increases your diplomatic relations with Tzeentchian factions, increases Tzeentchian corruption by 9 in a province, and gives you power reserve capacity +1 all region owner armies, which might help a bit with some of the downsides of Tzeentchian corruption. If you delete the Purple Hand main safe house, there's a 20% chance for this location to be destroyed, -9 control in the province, plus 100 corruption, wins of magic reduced by 9, and spell intensity -9% for all your armies. And, unlike the main settlement, removing this hideout costs 90,000. That is a ludicrous amount of gold to spend. So basically, if you've let this thing go out of control, you're gonna start suffering some severe consequences from this. I do think it's a very clever and interesting way of dealing with it. Now, the downside of Tzeentchian corruption is, of course, attrition in a province, if that's something you have to deal with, which Axiatl doesn't. Anyway, you have -10 control, You have chance of winds of magic, increasing strength when changing minus 30%, and miscast base chance plus 15%. So that is what you're trading really over here. And in this campaign in particular, the cult has spread. It hasn't occupied the main settlement, but that's, I imagine, because I have a sanctum, might be the interaction between the sanctum and the cult. Otherwise, I think it could have expanded over there. Not entirely certain. But it has gone in all the other settlements I have in the southern waste. Every single one of them except the sanctum one. So their promise that they wouldn't spread in your own territory, well, that's just a big flat lie. Because Tzeentch is Tzeentch. If I do look at my other territories, because, you know, Axial is Axial, we can also see that it's not just in the wasteland. So their promise of spreading around the world, well, that's a big lie. So it's going to spread across your territory. So you're going to be the one having to deal with consequences of this cult, this unusual location. It's a benefit in multiple ways. It can help you out quite a bit. I'd say the campaign movement range and the construction cost in particular are really big benefits. Winds of Magic, of course, when you experience all that, pretty useful, but the biggest ones are 9% campaign movement range and 9% construction cost. Those are the ones that are going to have the biggest impact on your campaign. But you are literally playing with fire, and generally when it comes to outplotting Tzeentch, it usually isn't a good idea to try and play that game. You're going to lose. But what happens if it spreads to 9 locations in total? Well, first off, you have to have 9 locations because it's spreading in your territory. But let's take a look at the effect that happens then. So if it spreads to 9 locations, an endgame army for Tzeentch, specifically for Kairos, will spawn. This is a fairly powerful army. It contains a lot of Chosen of Tzeentch, Chaos Knights of Tzeentch, Chaos War Shrine of Tzeentch, Lord of Change, Mutalisk, and Soul Grinders of Tzeentch. I imagine the actual units themselves would be a bit randomized, the quantities of units, or it could be a set amount. And it doesn't start being led by an Demon Prince of Tzeentch, rather it gets led by an Exalted Lord of Tzeentch, level 40. But since he's level 40, Kairos got the event to transform him into a Demon Prince, and as a result of that, he got the level 21 Demon Prince of Tzeentch. This is a very scary army, especially if Kairos is still alive. Like, obviously in this campaign he's not, because me and Teclis wiped him out. But if he was still alive, then obviously that would be a very scary proposition. It doesn't start at war with you. I declared war, so I would actually see what was in the army by getting it to march towards me. But yeah, this is what you get if you're playing around with Tzeentchian cults. You can try and keep it under control. Fair enough. It might come back to hurt you. Or maybe not, depends on which faction you're talking about. And this is just one of the Tzeentchian cults that has been added in 6.3. Worth saying that Kairos was already fairly scary and annoying before 6.3. Now he can become even worse than that. Or you can make him worse than that. That's all I had to say. Costin signing out.